question is from Van, who asks, the rentals next door at times will have barbecue food. However, there seems to be a gas-like smell and it flows through to my house, and I need to close my windows and doors to avoid this. They also cook and all the aroma smells will flow through to my unit. There's been a number of times that the smell of marijuana has also been used and flows through my unit, and once again need to close my windows and doors. I have young children, one with asthma. I've spoken to the neighbour who was not approachable and advised he is only doing a barbecue. What is your advice on this? So this is, a fairly straightforward case of nuisance from one lot to another lot. It could be barbecue smells, or general cooking smells is a pretty common one as well. So I'll deal with that first. I think reporting it to the neighbour and bringing it to their attention is always a good first step. Some people will, be apologetic and try and make improvements to minimise the nuisance, but if that hasn't worked, then you're in a case of a dispute between yourself as the party who's, suffering the nuisance and your neighbour who's causing it to you. So the body corporate bylaws would generally have a provision in there about general nuisance. It might be specifically about cooking or smells, but if there's nothing in there about that specific issue, there should usually be a default nuisance bylaw. If there's no bylaw about it, there's also legislation in the Body Corporate and Community Management Act that says owners or residents are not allowed to cause a nuisance to each other. So nuisance is always a fairly complicated issue to resolve because there's no clear-cut rules around it. So what might be a nuisance to you might not be a nuisance to the next person on the street. If the person asking the question has a child with asthma, you would assume they have a higher sensitivity to something like cooking smells, whereas they might be less bothered about noise, and other people might have different opinions about what causes a nuisance. So I think a negotiated outcome is really the way to go there. The person suffering the nuisance should issue a letter to the person causing the nuisance, and there can be a mediation process that follows on from that. In terms of the marijuana smell, this is becoming more and more common, unfortunately, and marijuana use in Queensland at least is not lawful unless you have very specific medical prescriptions. So if the nuisance, if you believe it's possible illegal activity, then you would have an ability to report that to the police if you felt it was at the level it should be reported. Otherwise, I think you draw that into the discussion around general nuisance smells, and hopefully the person on the other side of the fence realises that if they don't change their behaviour, they're likely to get into some trouble. But as I said, anything that deals with something like either smells or noise, because it's quite subjective, it always ends up in a negotiation process.